strategies and concepts discussed are for educational purposes only and do not represent specific investment, tax, or estate planning advice. Investing carries an inherent element of risk, and it is in everyone's best interest to consult a tax, legal, or investment professional. Beth Williams is an investment advisor representative of, and advisory services are offered through USA Financial Securities Corp., a registered investment advisor. Megan Carney, Megan S. Carney PLLC, and Financial Arc Builders are not affiliated with USA Financial Securities Corp.
Welcome to Money Healing. I'm your co-host, Beth Williams.
And I'm your other co-host, Megan Carney. We're here to talk about money and our feelings related to it. I'm a psychologist who specializes in helping sensitive people.
And I'm a financial planner. We both talk to everyday people just like you about these topics.
Everyone's mental health and money health journeys are so different. And as unique as we all are, there are some common themes when it comes to how our emotions impact our money and vice versa.
And it's those common themes that we are going to be discussing together, both the themes themselves and some ideas from us about how to move forward and heal your relationship with money. In the next bit of episodes, Megan and I will be unpacking the various emotions and trauma themes that we've encountered within our observations over the last few years.
We discovered that people fell into one of two camps, one that knows their numbers and where they are financially, and those that don't know their numbers and where they are financially. We recommend that you go through the episodes and listen to the ones you believe may apply to you.
Megan and I are big advocates for getting collaborative support for both your mental health and your financial health journey. As you listen, we recommend that you pay attention to yourself, your reactions emotionally, and reach out to either a mental health professional and or a financial professional to help you deal with your relationship with money.
We'll begin by discussing I don't know my numbers and blank. Is there something that comes after that? Emotional themes we'll discuss within that will be fear, avoidance. What happens if I lose or fail? Shame, guilt, and even domestic violence and abuse with the overarching theme of trauma.
We will then discuss I know my numbers and blank. Some of the emotional themes that we'll discuss within that will be hopelessness, fear, shame, embarrassment, burnout, never enough, feeling lost, undervalued, worry, and then we'll also deal with the overarching theme of trauma.
Welcome back to this episode of Money Healing. We're going to be talking today about not working with a financial advisor because you feel like you don't have enough, and really getting into the meat of what that means, because there is a practical side to that, but there's a very real emotional side to that as well. On the practical side, I've had friends even ask me, do you have to be rich to work with Beth? And I say, no, you don't. That's not where she is. That's not her lane. And so they had a practical fear or concern, but they also, underneath that, probably had this concern that's emotional, because the way we feel about our money, the way we relate to it, often mirrors back some personal stuff about us. So there's something going on there where we're feeling like we don't have enough to warrant needing a financial advisor. And if that's you, no shame. I have been there not long ago, thinking that I don't have enough money to need to talk to a financial advisor. So that's our episode for today. So Beth, I'd love to start off by asking you on this practical side of things, like, is there a number people have in mind? Like, what does that mean? What does that look like to have enough money to warrant working with a financial advisor?
Yeah, it's a great question, and it's one that we see a lot. I would say
if you haven't gone back and listened to episode number 4 for trust and transparency with financial advisors, that will unpack some of the basically cost time analysis that we have to go through. As small business owners, we have to go through and figure out what are our costs and how much do we need to make to be able to cover those costs and that kind of thing. So I would go back and I would listen to that one if you haven't already, but I don't think that it makes a lot of sense to wait until you have a dollar amount, whatever that is, to go to a financial advisor, because I think that the earlier that you work with a financial advisor, maybe the better you will be. I don't know, because it's very individual. But if I'm waiting to go to a financial advisor until I already have money, at least in our office, we don't think that that makes a lot of sense. I like to answer the question about what is enough based off of what it is that you're wanting to do. There's a lot of talking heads and there's a lot of noise out there about you need to have a certain amount by a certain age and you need to have this in this by this point. And I don't subscribe to that black and white thought process. It would make my job much easier if I was, because it would be easier to draw lines of like, yes, you made it or you didn't. And I really think that there's much more gray area. And so it doesn't necessarily, in our office at least, matter about how much you have. It matters more of what it is that you want to do. And we uncover that and we go through a whole process about trying to figure that out. It's okay if you don't know. And we're just trying to figure out what does that mean for you? Because it might be that you already have enough, but it again just warrants what it is that you're trying to do. And from there, we can start to dive into, am I doing too much? Am I not doing enough? And what that actually comes down to from a dollar perspective. But from the practical side, I don't have minimums. A lot of people will have a minimum, but again, that's, we're small business owners and we have to cover our costs. But for us, I take on anybody that comes to us, and if it's not the right fit, I'll let you know. But that's usually where I'm coming from.
I imagine there are some people listening who might be saying like, I'm living paycheck to paycheck, or I am in debt. Like, how could I possibly work with a financial advisor at this point? What would you say to them?
I would reference back to one of the podcasts where we said, to me, that doesn't make a lot of sense to wait until you're healthy to go to the doctor. Again, I don't think that that makes a lot of sense. If you're waiting until your knee gets better and then you go to the doctor, that doesn't make a lot of sense to me. So maybe that's just a different definition. But from my perspective, the earlier that you can get ahead of that and the earlier that you can go to somebody that you trust, I think the better off that you're probably going to be in the long run. I don't know, again, I'm generalizing, but I would say typically don't wait. Just start where you are right now, and maybe it's not as dire as you feel like it is.
Get that practical advice, get the real numbers, take the emotions out of it, talk to a professional.
Yeah, and yet there's really no way to separate those, which is again why we have this podcast. And honestly, Megan, when I'm having people that are coming to me and they're asking me those questions about like, well, do I have enough? I'm feeling a little insecure about it, that kind of thing. It does come down to, I think, more of a deep level. And you've already touched on it, on our relationship with money might have something to do with how we feel about ourselves. So is it like, I mean, what feelings are coming up, at least from my perspective, are feelings of inadequacy, or I'm just feeling like I'm not sufficient, maybe low self-esteem. I don't know. So I mean, from your perspective, what are the emotions?
The emotions I would say are like a low self-esteem, right? Not having trust in yourself. Maybe some like feelings of worthlessness, like I'm not good enough myself. How can I financially be good enough? Right? I think about, in small business, like what you and I do, Beth, like I have to set a fee. And it is really common for therapists, especially, when they're starting out on their own, to set a very low fee for lots of other reasons too. But many of us do have that, like, I have to give this much, I have to be this much before I can even ask for the amount that I really want or need. So there's some, like, I'm not good enough stuff happening there, when we're wondering if we don't have enough money yet to work with someone. I would also say, if you've ever felt or expressed that, like, you have imposter syndrome, right? Like, this is a great example of how it's going to show up with our money too, because we might have more than enough and we still feel like we don't have enough.
How do you think that we get past feeling inadequate or feeling like we don't have enough or we aren't enough? How do we move past that?
I say there's multiple paths to healing, right? Like, we can get to the same destination taking many different routes. One of those routes, I'm biased, is therapy. That is definitely something that you can work on with a skilled therapist. Sometimes people actually work on that through coaching. It depends on your personality and the personality of the coach, though. And I would say if there's some trauma layers in there for you, like if you don't feel like you're good enough because you didn't get that validation from your parents, take that to therapy. Don't take that to a coach, because a coach is more likely to be pushing you. And that's not what you need. You need somebody really validating you and really hearing you and helping you heal. It also, for me, has a lot to do with community, right? Finding the people who are going to consistently tell you that you are doing great. Finding those personal cheerleaders to help you remember that you are good enough, right? So therapy, maybe coaching, depending on your situation, and finding the right people are what I would say are the 3 essentials to figuring out, maybe not the essentials, but like the top 3 things of helping yourself really deal with those deeper feelings of feeling like you are not enough.
So, Megan, you touched on this in a previous episode that sometimes getting to a practical understanding of maybe where you're at is enough for people to be able to move on past the emotions. But maybe sometimes there's people that need a less logical approach. How do you gauge that? How do we deal with that when it comes to this conversation?
Well, I think it's all about stickiness, is what I would call it. Which is, sometimes you get the factual, practical information, and that's enough to unstick you from the feeling or the belief that, like, everything's gonna fall apart, right? I don't have enough, or any of those thoughts. And sometimes we get that practical information and our mind, our heart, for whatever reason, keeps us stuck. We cannot accept that the practical thing is true. We cannot trust it. We cannot believe it. And so we're still over here feeling the things we were feeling, believing the things that we were believing. So in this scenario, hearing that we have enough, we are going to be fine, and still being stuck in this fear of, I'm not going to be fine. I do not have enough. I do not trust that these numbers are even close to being possible or accurate. So we're stuck. That's the sign that you need more than the practical, that you really need somebody who can help you dig into that more deeply and help you process the feelings that are behind that, and perhaps heal from some times when you've gotten hurt in this regard in the past.
And I would say from a financial perspective, and for the sake of this podcast, our training as financial advisors is the practical side. We're supposed to show you the numbers. We will tell you, and we can unpack all of that. But to use Megan's analogy, if you're still feeling stuck, if we're going through and unpacking the numbers and we're showing you what enough is, or that you'll be fine, or that you won't be, or whatever it's going to be, if you're still feeling like that's not adequate information, I would say bring in your therapist, bring in someone that you can help to unpack some of those emotions, because again, that's not our training, and that's not our place, and we are not going to be able to help you past that. We can give you the practical information, but if you're still emotionally feeling something, you should really bring in your therapist to that conversation. And maybe we just need to take a pause and bring in the therapist and unpack that first, and then go into the practical side of things.
Yeah, and I will say too, like, you don't have to unpack it all together with your therapist and your financial advisor. You could take the situation that you're in, just like any other life situation you would take, to your therapist and say, like, this is what's going on, I'm feeling stuck, and just unpack it with your therapist.
Thank you for joining us for another episode of Money Healing. In this next episode, we're going to continue with this theme on I feel like I know my numbers, I don't get financial help, because in this episode, we'll talk about I'm afraid about what they're going to tell me about the future. And we'll see you there.